Hello, and welcome to It's Already In You podcast. We are your hosts, Liz
and Janine, nutrition and movement experts, mothers and business owners, obsessed with helping you quiet the noise of diet culture.
Seeing through the false advertising and promises of our food and fitness industries, helping you discover that everything you need to upgrade your health and well-being is already in you. Hey guys, we are here today in a very passionate minded kind of conversation that we're going to lead, kind of like current affairs. So you may have heard on Monday, September 23rd, there was a group of people that came together in DC, really led by Senator Johnson, Ron Johnson, and RFK. So even though it's a bipartisan group, they were kind of the moderators and the leaders of this conversation. And the group that came together were professionals, doctors, psychiatrists, nutritionists, people that have worked in the field of health, nutrition, mental health, people who have podcasts and, a strong presence on social media, speaking of these issues for years and years. And these issues being the health and nutrition crisis that we have in America. And they really laid down both foundational and historical understanding of the changes that have occurred with our food system, with our healthcare industries, and how those changes have created a lot of problems, chronic health problems, disease, mental health in our children, in really all walks of life. The obesity and overweight chronic decline that has happened over the years, learning disabilities, behavioral problems, really just a breakdown in so many areas of our society. And so much of it is rooted on what we're putting into our bodies, how we're cared for in the medical industry in terms of prevention or lack of prevention, and just the general understanding. So that's kind of the space that we're going to be talking from today. And it's no surprise that Janine and I are extremely passionate about this. And, a lot of the things that we heard, this was a 4-hour roundtable. Many, many different people spoke. Majority of the things we heard resonated with us in a very positive / frustrating way, because we're like, yes, we know this. Yeah. But it was so good to hear people saying these things out loud. So Janine, I know that you have also watched this and are familiar with a lot of the people that had spoke prior to hearing them on Monday. What was your initial takeaway?
Well, I want to say I'm extremely fired up today. So so we had like a total debrief before we got on here.
We decompressed a little bit.
Yeah. I'm excited because bringing this to light is so, so important. And I think it's, of course, with anything, when you see, this is going to get a bigger audience, right? Because the audience that I think that it has right now is not big enough to make change. But I feel like, especially when you start talking about children's health and you start talking about the future, and people start to realize like the choices they make can make a big difference in their children's lives for their future, and especially their children's health. It becomes something that people want to talk about, right? But so I'm going to say that, and I'd love to hear like your voice on this as well. But like when I first heard this was going to happen, I was like, holy crap, like this is insane. Like I'm so excited. But then I kind of pulled myself back and was like, wait a second, is this something to be excited about? Or is it going to be, construed into, a political
Yeah, kind of like that
debate.
Time article that like came out different, like, like how.
Yeah, like what are they doing? What is
Yeah.
this? Like, is there something behind it? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's got to be, you always think, you're just always skeptical to think that like it's too good to be true, right? So on one side, I was like really excited. This is so important. These topics need to be discussed. And truly, they should be a part of a political debate. I should be hearing about these things when I'm making a decision on who I'm voting for. These things should be probably top priority for the people in power that can make change, right? It's not something that should be secondhand or on the side or, these are serious, serious topics that they trickle down to all the rest.
Yeah.
So, yes, excited. Yes, a little fearful that, again, extremism is always something that a lot of people can't get behind, or they have perspective, right? Or the way that they receive the information is brought into this place that's not accepting of the information at hand because of where it's coming from, or, who the person is that's delivering it. This is all really concerning to me. You think, oh, what they're wearing isn't acceptable, or, what they represent isn't acceptable. And I don't want anybody to hear this other than from the place of importance that it should be coming from, right? To me, who's delivering this information is really not what we should be thinking about. What we should be thinking about is the fact that this information is real and factual, and we need to be looking at it with a critical thinking cap and with the thought of, all these years that I've been doing these seminars and educating people on this subject, why haven't I done anything further to make a difference on a bigger field, right? Don't you think about that sometimes? Like, why am I holding back? And now I'm fired up to say, oh, wait a second. Why haven't I've known and done research and have been connected to this for years. Now, because I've seen okay, they've shed this light that it needs to be brought to Congress. Somebody needs to have a voice here. I want to have a voice in Massachusetts. I want to meet with Congress people and say, what are you going to do about these topics? These are important subjects, right? So did you feel like I had conflict, but excitement? My emotions are all over the place because...
Yeah, no, I think it is. Because, you sometimes feel like a little puppet when it comes to just, government and politics and all that stuff, regardless of what you believe. It just feels like you're bouncing around sometimes. So when it's coming from kind of DC or whatever, people in suits, you're like, how's this going to go? But for people in our field who kind of have the same thought process that we have, it was like Christmas. I think everybody was like, I saw a bunch of people posting this is a big deal today. This is a big deal. So I really recognized that as a big deal. I was excited. Like I said, I watched the entire 4 hours. I felt, I left feeling energized. And, to your point of knowing this stuff and being on kind of an evolution of learning more and having so many more ahas. And as, food industry has changed and we've continued to grow, to see how that and putting the pieces together with the food we eat and our health issues, and especially what we do every day, working with people in, movement and fitness and nutrition and all of that stuff, and kind of seeing the, results of a healthy, well-balanced, we love that word balance, but majority of the time, committed lifestyle, and people who come to us who are broken internally, mentally, all of those things because of their lifestyle. So I know that we both were like, yeah. But I also will say, to your point of holding on to that information and knowledge and maybe sharing it in areas that feel safe, because ultimately we don't want to offend anybody. Or I think I will say for myself, I have felt very strong beliefs, and I definitely water it down when I speak on Instagram or speak to people who are even paying me.
Unfortunately, you have to.
You have to, because you don't want to, one, turn people away. You want to start kind of small and then add that stuff, add more information and knowledge in. But also, like, there is you don't even realize how many things are tied in to our food industry, into making money, into advertising. And people have a hard time looking at their actions that they want to do. Like, if you really look at what alcohol does to you, you're going to have, once you'll have a different relationship with how you drink. If you really know about the meat industry, you're going to have a different relationship with choosing, meat, not grass-fed meat, and like organic and all of that stuff. And
making those decisions.
Yeah. But what motivated me, what I left fired up in a good way about, is like, no, I have to say those things now. I can't water it down, because it is something that is impacting people I love. So, I mean, the people who live in California, I hope the best for them. And I want to trickle but like in my immediate family, in my immediate friend circles, for my kids, like this is something that like needs to be spoken about.
Yes, it needs to be heard.
Yeah.
But the big thing is like, I feel like we're probably on the kind spectrum, like the kindest people. You would like if you know us, you'd know that like if I offended somebody or hurt somebody, and I feel like you're the same way, like I wouldn't sleep for a month. It would sit with me. Mm-hmm. Like I am not a brush it off my, sweep it under the rug, move on, like, sorry I hurt your feelings kind of person. I'm just not. I'm but I didn't mean to offend you. At the same time, this is one of those things, like there's probably only a couple things that you could really see the passion and the drive come out of me. Like, hurt my kids, I'll take you down.
Yes.
And I have no qualm telling you that, right? Like, but this to me is the same thing. It's almost like this is hurting my children, your children, our American children, like in a way that it does fire me up. And sometimes I feel like because, and especially when you're the type of person that doesn't necessarily sound like this, have that fiery personality, all of a sudden, if you start talking to someone like this and you're in their face about it, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Step back.
Yeah.
You are overwhelming me. You are intimidating me. You are, you know what I mean? It's like, it's too much for people. And I've had those times where I'm like, I've heard somebody say it's your delivery.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Because I'm so excited about it.
Yeah.
But it does come across that way sometimes, right? And that's why, like, when we first said, okay, we're going to talk about this, I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, because it does, the way that something is delivered. And I think it's like a now thing.
Yeah.
It is our culture right now. Like, you can't be too pushy or when something feels to somebody like, all right, you're scaring me. That's too much information.
Yeah.
Or wait a second, are you going to put me on the defensive because I've been doing something wrong, especially to your children? Like, right away, those defenses go up and your offensive personality comes out because you're like, nope, I'm not going to hear that, because that means that I have to look inside what I've been doing, right? And if you look at the rhetoric that's been around the food system, pharmaceuticals, all of those things, the rhetoric is, we're almost calling things, like, I'm sure you've seen this, and the Time magazine, again, we can use that as an example. 2 years ago, a year ago, ultra-processed foods are so bad for us, right? Was the cover. And then fast forward today, why ultra-processed foods are not that bad for us, right? There is reason behind that. Organic foods. Organic foods are what food was 50, 75 years ago.
Sure.
They're not anything new. But in order for the industry to make people scared or step away, is to make us think that there's something wrong with what we're saying, what we're delivering in our information, right? So I don't know if you saw this, but a couple of years ago, there was a term used for people that were eating all organic food. It was like, I can't think of it right now, but it was an actual disease, they called it, right? I actually heard a nutritionist speak to the fact that we need a certain amount of processed foods in our diet. That's a blatant lie.
Yeah.
But that's the rhetoric that's put out there to make us be okay with the choices that we're making, so we're not listening to the health advocates. And that was a lot about what this roundtable was about. You know what I mean? Start to listen, right? But again, we're so scared to push people away that we will hold back what we say. And you've said it to me, like even the choices that we make, we're so scared to say, hell no, I am not going to do that. Society does it, so we have to do it, right? No, you don't have to do it. You can be a consumer that votes with your dollar. You can be an advocate for your child and say no. Just because a doctor is on a certain path to give you this information because it's what they read off of their American Pediatric Society's guidelines doesn't mean you need to accept that, right?
Yeah.
So again, this brought up like emotion for me because it's all the things and not all the things. I mean, we're learning every day, right? There's I'm sure things that you heard in that roundtable that you're like, I didn't know that. I need to look into that. Like, because we can't accept everything like for face value as black and white. Like, we have to be our own critical thinkers. We have to be our own researchers, our own advocates. So even with this, like, there were some things that I was like, whoa, that was a lot. I need to step back and I need to do some research on that before that's something that I'll even speak to, right?
Sure.
But it is opening a door for the realization that we need to start opening our eyes and not accepting things just because a doctor says so or because it's part of the guidelines or part of the policy, right?
Yeah. Or it's convenient or comfortable or because you've already done it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I definitely heard some things that like piqued my interest. And like also I was like, I want to learn more about this. But the general message that I took away from this roundtable was our bodies are created one way, and we have created a society that has pulled us away from the way we are naturally built. And that comes from, the foods that we eat, overprescribing medication, our environment, our movement. All of these things have been created externally with nothing that really involves nature, with nothing that involves growing from the ground, using the sun, getting outside, finding your muscles. And to me, that is really common sense. Like, you, as much as we would like to think that we evolve at the rate that computers and machines and chemicals and all of these things to create all the stuff in our world, we don't change. Our internal insides don't change. Our needs for certain, vitamins and foods and connections and community and all of that stuff that we need every single day does not change. And that is so simple to me. So if you're looking at things in your life that are structured to pull you away and to put in engineered anything, foods, computers, phones, the majority of the time, then that is the red flag. That is what is creating disease. And that is what's creating sickness. That's what's creating unhappiness, all of those things. And so, it might be easy for us to say, and we've said this before, like, it's just this thing, or I just drink Coca-Cola sometimes, or but it really is not like that anymore. It isn't. And I think that that's a big thing that people have to kind of get around, and especially people our age who maybe grew up with a little bit, can recognize a time that it wasn't so heavy with like this ultra processed kind of society, and who are raising kids, which is even that much more important. Like, that we like really understand that this like falseness that we are putting into our bodies is just not something here and there anymore. It is, and past that, it's the environment, it's the cleaning, it's the stuff we're putting on our face. I saw this thing the other day. No, I saw it on this round table of like, you know, kids now putting at 9 years old, putting, you know, 8, 10 different serums and age.
I was just saying this too. Like, you're either these kids, and people are like posting about like this is a funny thing,
cute.
Right?
Oh my, cute.
Like, look at all these kids in Sephora. Look at all these kids in Starbucks.
Yeah.
So now they're going to Sephora, putting all this chemicals on their face that they don't need.
No.
And then they're going to Starbucks and filling their bodies with like,
caffeine,
like you said. And your point, coming back to like, it's already in you point, like common sense, you would think, right? That it is common sense. We know this. We know better. We can do better.
Yeah.
We know truly in us, if we just like push through all this, like break through all this noise and all of this information that's out there, that we've been made to believe, not that like over these years, we've been convinced almost, right, to believe what we're told. And I want to come back to, I think that a big point of everything that they said yesterday, one of the biggest points that I think we need to come across today in telling people is that it's not our fault. It's not our fault that we don't understand the common sense. Like, we've got too much information, and doctors, healthcare providers, these amazing human beings that do the work every day, they don't go into it thinking they're gonna harm anybody. They go into it believing that the knowledge that they receive from the curriculum that they're taught to deliver to their patients once they become part of the healthcare system is what's going to help people. But the problem is they're not taught anything about the prevention side of things, right? So I think that that's a really important, valid point that we need to chat a little bit about, because there were surgeons and psychiatrists, psychologists, medical providers on there. Like, you hear all the time, like, I have people that I love in my family, in my life, that, you know, they went through college, whether to be a nurse or somebody in the healthcare system, that they question these things because they weren't taught any of these things.
Yeah.
You know, the surgeon that said she didn't take one nutrition class.
Yeah.
She didn't even know about the amount of chemicals that are allowed in our system, whether it be in the food system or our skincare or our cleaning products or the environment. She didn't know any of these things. You know, so like some points that you may have heard through that roundtable, anything that sticks out in your mind that...
Yeah, I mean, particularly with kind of like our preventative versus reactive, is that, you know, what we have created, I mean, they said, and again, it's one of those things I feel like every time I say this, I always want to say, but there are great doctors too, because there are, and there is obviously a point for medicine and stuff like that. But, you know, to say we have built an industry, a medical industry that profits from us being sick.
Yes.
And that's the fact of the matter, is that us getting medications, going in to doctors and emergencies and surgeries and all that stuff, honestly, that's how money is being made. And so Is that something that is at the forefront of the doctors? Maybe not. I believe that a lot of them probably learn it as they're there of really what that corporate driver is. But that is fact. I mean, going into CVS or Walgreens, if you're not going in there, that those stores are 98% stuff for your eyes, stuff for your skin, stuff for this. Like, you know, you go in there to kind of find remedies. And so imagine if you didn't need those, where would those things go, you know? And so that was definitely like, you know, a takeaway. And then the other one was like, you know, there is a purpose for doctors and medicine and all of that stuff. But we have created, you know, I think they said 90-something% of people going through those doors with lifestyle conditions, things that they essentially unknowingly and maybe knowingly have created in their own lifestyles and by repetitive habits. So that 10% that have acute things that really do need
healthcare,
doctors and healthcare and attention and follow-ups and time and all of that stuff, they don't have that because they're bombarded by that quantity of people seeing, you know, 70, you know, patients and like all of that stuff, that those people who actually do need those services, and probably the intention of why a lot of those doctors started out to get into that really like purposeful care, is now no longer relevant because we have so many people walking through the door with, you know, obesity related conditions, with, you know, bone conditions and fractures, metabolic, all of those things. So those were definitely specifically related to, you know, our healthcare industry and how nutrition really, and lack of nutrition and lifestyle, impacts this kind of cycle that we're on, and that it makes you question if we know these things that will help minimize, that will help slow down, you know, disease and aging and preventative. And people know this. I mean, I am not a doctor, but I will honestly say, like, for many, many years, I have critically thought, this doesn't make sense. Right. And I have put the pieces together, you know, and I can't help but think that if you're on the forefront of medicine and you're seeing these same people come in every day and you are an intellectual person, you are also not putting those things together. So then it becomes an ethical choice. And some of these people that we saw on this roundtable had walked away from conventional medicine because they made the choice that this is not set up for health. So yeah, I mean, it's just it's like, so why wouldn't we want to make people better?
Well, I think part of it though is it's so hard to believe that.
Yeah, it's so hard. Yeah,
it's so hard to believe that. At the same time, the statistics are staggering when we look at them for chronic illness. You know, one of the things that I said to you that really penetrated my brain was that this was a simple thing and something that I probably know, but hearing it in words and having somebody say it out loud, right? Like 30 years ago, walking into a pediatrician's office, or a pediatrician could not tell you that they were seeing any patients with chronic illness.
Yeah.
Now, 1 in 3 of their patients, we're talking children are coming to them with chronic illness. They don't even know what to do with that.
Yeah.
That's not what they provide.
Yeah.
That's not their service. So, you know, my niece told me the other day she was researching holistic or more holistic type lifestyle pediatrics, right? Trying to find one. This was staggering to me and exciting at the same time, because obviously we are becoming more aware, because she called a holistic pediatrician that is more lifestyle. Now, this doesn't mean if you say that you are now lifestyle and you are a doctor, that you're not doing the medical things that need to be provided for a child. So I just want to say that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that. It just means that you're looking for root cause rather than looking at symptoms and prescribing. Antibiotic. So you're saying, okay, this child needs an antibiotic, but also should be given a probiotic at the same time, right?
Or
and we
why?
want to be, and why? Why do we need this? But knowing for sure, or as much for sure as we can that yes, this is a case where it is bacterial and it most definitely needs an antibiotic. With that being said, she's looking and found a holistic pediatrician, accepts insurance, is a board certified pediatric doctor, right? They have 250 families on their wait list.
Yeah.
Okay, so that made me sad because I want her to be able to get into that, but happy that, and sad that we need more of this, obviously, in this area, so we don't have 250 families on a wait list, but excited that, okay, people are aware. They want to know the root cause. Of course we do.
Yeah.
Of course we do. As parents, do we want to know what's causing our child's symptoms and want to make a, educated decision, responsible decision when we're making, choices for our child in their health care?
Yeah.
Of course we do. But for so long, we've been told that you make the appointment, you go for the physical, you answer the questions, you do what they say.
Yeah.
So I think for so many Americans, it's such a hard place to be that we feel. I mean, you fear it, right?
Yeah.
Milk does a body good. If you don't give your child milk, they're gonna have no good bones, right? Like, if you don't do what you're told, and then there's an outcome from that consequence is your responsibility.
Yeah.
So of course we're scared
Yeah.
to make the decision that's not mainstream, that's not what we're told to make, right?
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think that you see that a lot with, like, regardless of what your point of view is, like with vaccines and stuff like that, there's such a wide range of opinions. And I encourage, everybody to do your research and ask your questions about any medication or, vaccine that obviously you put in your body, but definitely, in your child's body. But that we take it for just like, I'm told that this is this. I'm told that this is what's going to keep my child safe and healthy, so that this is what I'm going to do. And to take a pause and be like, where is this coming from? Who is saying this? Why are they saying this? What is the ultimate, like, science and or money-driven benefit? And so it's just being a little bit more of a critical thinker. And I think people, you said it, people are doing it more and more. And I do think that just kind of life. I mean, you see this all over is that things have to happen for a time period, and then things have to, like, you have to see how we respond to it, and then people learn and try to make changes. And so, you see a lot of that with phones and stuff like that. There needs to obviously continue to be there, but there's, things that if you're a parent and you want to, you can have, controls on your phone to help monitor your kids, so on and so forth. And so I think that, we're seeing that. We have one of the things that one of the women talked about, her name's Alex Clark. I would encourage people to, go on Instagram, follow her. She's a very dynamic speaker and had a lot of great points. But, like, we need to just take a step back and be like, why are we having these new problems? So, when you talk about fertility and how many, I can't name the number of people I have known, good friends who are unable to get pregnant or have struggled to get pregnant. And, when you look back, there can be many different reasons, but we do need to look at the fact that, we are giving, like we just said, these young girls all of this, like, chemicals on their face and on their body, which are endocrine disruptors, which start to mess with the in their stages of developing. And we wonder why puberty happens sooner. And, then we're putting them on hormones because they have bad cramps or they have acne, and then they're on, birth control for many years. And then that messes with the natural evolution of the body. And again, it's like that thing that, like, maybe there are some one-off cases, but the majority of the population, as their body is developing and growing and forming and all these systems are in place, everything is not always meant to be without discomfort and pain. There are changes that we go through that sometimes can feel a little uncomfortable. And if we learn about them, we might understand how we can minimize those through lifestyle or understand the process that our body is going through instead of trying to make it go away. Because when we make it go away, then we are creating a different rhythm, a different natural rhythm that our body is designed. And on the back end of it, there's going to be consequences. So then people are 25, they've been putting chemicals all over their body and face girls are told to clean and like candles and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And all of that's been going on in their body for many, many years. They are on hormonal birth controls many, many years. And then they all of a sudden want their hormonal reproductive system to work for them efficiently. And it's stalled, stuck, damaged. And again, these are hard things to talk about because you don't want to blame your parents for buying that for you. You don't want to blame. But the fact of the matter is, it's the truth and it's science and that's just black and white. And so to me, asking these questions and seeing these questions asked more and more versus like, well, what's going on? Why is this like an epidemic? Or why is so many women having these problems or so many kids having these problems? It's like,
we know why.
We know why.
Yep.
And you do have to call people out. And we do have to call ourselves out. I have to call myself out for doing certain things, that might impact. And when you do that, it gives you an opportunity to change course.
Yep. Yes. So,
like it's easily fired up, but then you take that fired up and you're like, how can I turn this into action? So what are some things that I know you came in and shared something that some things you want to do, but like, what are some actionable things that you took from that?
Yeah, I want to go to our Congress representative and speak to this and see where they are on it. And if they're supporting a movement to start to make change. I guess there's not anything to be excited about until we start seeing bills being passed in Congress that are going to make these changes. One of the speakers at the roundtable, and I feel bad that I can't remember his name. I'll look it up before we end. But and I think that for everyone that's listening and that is excited to learn more about this, we'll put the links to this roundtable and to many of the speakers. We'll give a lot of resources for this episode. But one of them did say that. We're subsidizing pesticides. We're subsidizing this crap food. But where's the subsidy for good lunches, good school lunches? Where's the subsidies for, doing research to make change so we can see people actually prevent disease instead of, we're always supporting the research for the cure. Like, what about preventing the disease in the first place?
Yeah.
What about arming our children from a very young age with the information and education to make better choices, to avoid things that are not going to be positive for them, and to start to make the good choices of what is going to be better for them, for their environment, for their future worlds, because we're going to leave this to them and it's not going to be a healthy place or is it even going to be
a place? Yeah. I mean, I think just off that point quickly is that we create a bigger headache for ourselves than necessary. I saw this thing yesterday that was like, which I have been like in my personal town, like have gone to school boards and stuff for like recesses and outdoor time for children that like once you hit 10 years old in our town, there's no more recess. There's no more outdoor time. Like you literally sit inside. They don't even have gym all year long. I can go on about this. This gets me all fired up. But But the fact of
the prisoner quote, do you remember that one? Casey Means said it, that our children in schools spend less time outside
than a maximum security
prisoner.
Which like just being, a personal trainer and knowing how much movement and how much it means to me. Like my middle school son literally says, like, it feels like I'm in prison all day. But the point is, you have these young, teenagers, young adults, kids not going outside, not getting fresh air, knowing that is actually what fuels our like cells and our brain and all of these things to learn. Also, we're spending all this time and money because of behavioral issues, because kids can't sit still, because of all of these other things that are happening in school. When we know that hiring specialists, all of this stuff, when we know it's free. Give them 20 minutes a day to run outside. I guarantee that antsiness, that behavior, those little outbursts that you see, I mean, I'm sure it's girls too, but definitely having 2 boys, they are physical humans. You give that to them for free and you're going to minimize some of all these specialists and these things that you're coming in to try to control behavior. When I went to my school board to say this, their answer was 2 things. 1, we have to meet a certain number of educational minutes of a day, so we don't have any time for that. 2, we don't have any staff for that. And 3, they walk up and down stairs multiple times a day. Like, that's BS to me.
Yeah.
And you don't even have a gym they're not even moving all through the year. It's a semester that they have it. So anyways, part of the point of what they were saying on this roundtable, which I think we can all connect to in our day-to-day life, like situations like this for ourselves and our kids. Why, knowing what we know, do we make it more challenging, more expensive, more messy for not only ourselves, but honestly, when you look at it, for your government, for like so many things that we are spending money on, our Medicare, our insurance bills, all of that stuff to fuel sick humans.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't we taking that money, spending
it's
way
so much
less
money? It's so much money. We could feed the world.
Yes. I mean, we are honestly paying from our hardworking paychecks to our insurance companies, to our Medicare companies, to perpetuate sickness.
Yep.
That's really what we are doing. Because those people are getting prescription medication. Those people are getting like care that they don't deserve. And they're not solving their problem. They're not going home saying, you know what? I found the root cause. I don't need to go to the doctors anymore because we figured it out. No, you just are like a lifelong patient.
Yep. Yes.
I don't get it.
I don't get it.
So to your point of now it's time. The pots have been stirred. Information has been continued to put out there. Now it's time, and I believe that this roundtable was a call to action.
Yeah.
A call to action for moms, to dads, to citizens, to school teachers, for
let's do the work.
Government. And it can happen. It happens in other countries all the time. It's happened in states. I mean, a lot of stores I remember years ago, they got rid of plastic bags. Some, grocery bags.
Yeah.
Some stores, you have to bring your own like reusable bags. Like there are little things that have happened because of that movement. Push. Yep. There's in California, they have a little bit more of banned on certain like foods and stuff like that. Like why can't that happen? And why can't we as people push that along?
So it's a big fight, right? Because it's money.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure, like we're talking money that we can't even fathom and understand, that's wrapped around all of this stuff, which makes it even more difficult, right? It's just like the tobacco industry 30 years ago, and it's going to take a lot to move this through the right channels to make change. However, I think it's our responsibility that we know this information, and it can be overwhelming. It's overwhelming for those of us who know it and live it every day and educate others about it. It is overwhelming, and sometimes it's hard, but you don't have to do everything today. But make one change and start to let that change snowball into the next change, into the next change, into the next change, and educate yourself.
Yeah.
And the more knowledge you have, the more power you have to make those changes and do what's right for yourself, for your loved ones, for the people that you care about the most. We can create a movement by making these decisions that are not supporting these businesses anymore. We should be demanding that we are just as important human beings as European people, that the same food is sold in those countries that's different than here, that chemicals are banned in that country that are not banned here. We can stand up and say, we are not okay with this just by not buying that product anymore. Yeah. And that is getting on that advocacy to make change, right? To you want to do something, start doing it. Yeah. Start making these small changes. Don't accept it, and it will change. If we say to Coca-Cola that owns Gatorade now, is it Coca-Cola?
Yeah.
That owns Gatorade now. If we say we're not giving our kids red number 40, we don't want fake sugar and fake ingredients in our sports drinks, and we're not going to buy them anymore. We're going to make the choices that are better for our kids. Eventually, we're going to see that product start to change. So yes, we can do something about it, even in the most small, little, tiny ways. And for the side note, the kid that's on the field for 30 minutes doesn't need an electrolyte replacement. Right. They need to eat micronutrients, get good food sources, and drink water and be hydrated. And I hope that they're moving more than the 30 minutes that they're on the field. But they don't need that product. So just with that statement and that fact, we can make a change by just not even buying that product anymore, right?
Yeah.
So I think we need to stop looking at it at the big picture because it is overwhelming, and we need to start to break it down into small, little, doable, manageable tasks. Everyone wants to meet people where they are. So let's not be overwhelming, and let's say, okay, let's meet you where you are. Start to think about small little things that are going to make a big impact, not only in your health and the health of your family and loved ones, but for the future, and that will impact and make change to those companies and to the people that are making those products.
Yeah.
And giving them to us, right? We can do this. Yeah. We can make change.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I 100% know because, you feel it in your own lives when you, commit to picking and choosing things that are truly beneficial for all things. And I think that I will share one thing that I have been doing more and more is being really just point blank honest with myself and trying, and I've shared on this podcast before, the parenting part is my biggest challenge, is just not kind of just going with everybody in certain situations, whether it's the sport drink or whatever. But now when I am fully educated, which I feel like not all things, but a lot of things I am, especially when it comes to things in the supermarket, is that I just ask myself, as I'm reaching for this, is this going to harm my child? Is this going to create harm? And if the answer is yes, I try to find an alternative, or I don't get it. And that sounds very kind of big and scary to be by grabbing, let's just say these chips.
Just to be the devil's advocate, I have to interrupt this because I have this conversation a lot, as I'm sure you do.
Sure.
Right? So somebody says to you, well, they're not going to die from eating red dye number 40, right?
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to die from one cigarette either.
Yeah.
But respond to that.
Yeah. It's not just the one anymore. It's not the one bag of chips, because what I know, and if it was, you know what, I probably would have a window of what we talked about in the podcast a few weeks ago, the window of moderation here and there if I believed that was to be true, if it was something that they ate every couple weeks, because I also believe in the body and the strength of the body to pull out toxins. But what I know now, and this is what it's important, is to what we know now, is that that's not the case. The ingredients are different in the goldfish today than they were, 15 years ago. I know that my kids have an opportunity with every single meal to eat ultra processed foods if they chose, if I didn't create a different environment for them. That there are many kids out there, many adults out there that are choosing processed foods for every single meal because that's what's there for them, or that's what's convenient, or that's what they know. And so that chip, that red dye 40, that I'm putting my hand on that bag in the grocery store and saying, is this going to harm my child? Yeah, maybe this one thing in this one moment won't for the big picture, but it will create a ripple effect, because then they're going to have that taste in their mouth, and then they're going to want it the next time they go to the store. And then
it's an addictive
thing. And there's so many layers to it. So it is that slippery. And to be honest with you, like, it makes it easier when you just don't do it, or you find
and it's consistency for your kids.
And it's consistency.
It's confusing if you don't. People ask why I'm so, why it has to be this way. Like, why you can, relax sometimes, and it's like, I'm not relaxed.
Yeah,
this doesn't bother
me.
Feel
good about
it only bothers you that I'm like this. I choose what I choose, or I did. My kids are now old enough that they're making these decisions on their own. But I chose I made those decisions because for me, I didn't want to have the argument the next time the choice came along.
Yeah.
It's like if you say bedtime is at 7:30 and then for 3 weeks you allow it to be at 9, then on the 4th week they're going to ask you, why can't it be at 9? Right? Even if it's because if it's a special occasion. And when I'm saying this, I mean, I want to say that I am not rigid in my choices. I make the better than choices if I have to make a choice that's not the best. Right? I do that. But I just want to say I don't waver when it comes to specific ingredients. I don't say, oh, okay, you can have that today and it has red dye in it, and I'm beating up red dye because I just think it's a notable ingredient that's in a lot of things that people can understand. But why would I choose the product that has red dye when I can choose the same product that doesn't? Mm-hmm. I can make that choice, and then it's never a question, right?
Yeah.
Like, my kids weren't like, oh, she didn't let us have that at all. I just don't want the one with that ingredient in it, so we choose this one. Like, it is that simple, especially now. There's so many options.
Yeah.
And I will say this, sometimes I go to the grocery store, right? Like, we're like everybody else. I'm starving. I turn something over because I want a snack right there, and then it has an oil in it that I don't like. And I've done this. I've turned 5 things over, and I'm like, oh, no. And then I'll grab something, and I won't even turn it over. And then this is if I'm at Trader Joe's. It's organic trail mix, right? I don't turn it over because at that point,
I just need to eat.
I just need something. I know it's organic. I know it's not going to have everything I want or not want in it, right? But at that point, I'm like, I just turned 5 things over.
Yeah.
And now I just need something.
Yes.
And this is my best choice.
Yes.
So screw it if it has this in it. But so it's not about the rigidity of the choice. It's about making the better than choice, but knowing these are my no's.
Yeah. And just
my
being honest with
absolute
yourself.
no's, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't play games with yourself.
Yes.
Just know what it is, and you make a choice. But I just feel like it's overcomplicated. And so if you at home are starting out, or you're in this journey of kind of hearing these things and knowing there's truth, kind of feeling like, where do I even start? Or if I try to give my kids these foods, they're going to say no because they want the old things. And remember, we are taught animals. We are taught, human beings are to be taught. So that is why when new habits come into play, it's hard for people because they have taught their body to expect something else, whether it's a sedentary lifestyle, whether it's certain foods, whether it's certain bedtimes, whatever it may be. And so there's a time period, and that's the uncomfortable part. That's when a lot of people drop whatever it is that they're doing because they're uncomfortable. They don't know how to manage it. They don't have the education. So yeah, maybe there might be a week where your kid's like, yeah, no, I don't like the taste of that. But eventually they're going to. And then when they go back and have the things that have artificial sugars and chemicals, they're going to go to that taste and be like, ugh, and taste the artificial.
That's
and
right.
so allow that time period of change. And if you are rooted in education and you're rooted in truth, you are going to stand by your choices because you know that they are the best choices for you and your family the majority of the time. Your best will look different than mine, but overall, you are picking things that are rooted in health.
Yes.
And so that's where I would really ask you guys to look, is just that honest look, really just see it for what it is, what we're seeing happening in our healthcare, in our family, in our loved ones, in our communities, in our children. This is not the way it has to be. This is not normal. You should not go to the beach and see, half of the kids, if not more, overweight. This does not have to be like this. We are unfortunately in this kind of funhouse of a world, lack of better wording.
Yeah, right.
And we are the ones that need to figure out how to get out of it, and something like this roundtable that we saw, a couple days ago is a great place to start. But I encourage you to really take an honest look at how you can make small impacts so that we can continue this momentum forward. And we can, in 5 years, look at each other and be like, you know what? Red dye isn't allowed in our country anymore. You know what? This isn't allowed in our country anymore. And that's really where it's going to start. And every fiber of my being knows that it's possible. I know it is. So let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So we are going to do you have any final closing things?
I just hope everyone is hearing this from a loving, caring, passionate, educational place, and that they don't take it as, this is not a stand for anything other than our health and the most important thing that we have the capability of protecting.
Yep.
And I think it's really hard to leave these conversations and not second guess. Did we push too hard? Did we say something wrong? Never is it, and I know we keep saying this and we shouldn't have to, but it's never to offend anybody's current ways of life. It's just, we want to show you that you have the power to make these changes. You do. You don't need anybody else. We would love it if the government makes change and there's policy and that we don't have to worry about what's in our food system anymore. That would be the most ideal, right? Sure. But it's the same thing with tobacco, that it's still there.
Yeah.
You just have now the choice and the knowledge to not make that decision.
There's a million restrictions put into place to protect the majority of people.
Right.
No smoking in malls and outside stores.
Right.
And that is impactful.
And
look what's happened.
And it's
with
powerful.
Smoking. It's decreased. So, we're going to obviously keep this conversation going. You might even hear a follow-up. But know that everything you need is in you. And when you don't know, find like-minded people, have these conversations. It's okay to be a little uncomfortable. You don't need to be shamed. There's always opportunity for change. And so we will link below this roundtable conversation. You can listen to it also like a podcast on your walks, but we really encourage you to take the time, listen to these people, follow some of these people, listen to their podcasts, listen to what they're doing. And I know that you can pick some things that really resonate with you and where you are in your life. If you have any specific questions about this, if you need any specific support, definitely reach out to us. Shoot us an email at itsalreadyanyoupodcast@gmail.com. And also, Follow us on Instagram. It's Already In You podcast. And just keep listening. Let's keep talking about this. Talking about it with like openness and love, but also a push forward, because that is what we need, and it's definitely the time for that.
Yes.
Thank you for listening, you guys.